let's be honest. There can only be one 23. And that's the worst joke I've had so far. That's terrible. Hey, what's up, guys? I am Nova. Welcome to another reaction. This is a little bit different. We're going into the sports world, and something that I, of course, hold near and dear to my heart is the game of basketball. Growing up, I got to watch some of the best players of all time and then try to emulate them on the court, and of course, failed miserably. But that won't stop us from enjoying going back and watching some of the greats. And of course, the biggest debate that has continued to plague sports talk radio and TV for the last, 7 to 10 years, I guess, somewhere in that neck of the woods, would be Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. Who is the GOAT? Who can chew up paper at will and make weird screaming noises that sound oddly human? One of these two gentlemen has to be able to do it better than the other. Now, personally, having grown up and being able to watch Jordan in his prime and then get to watch LeBron all the way through, I'm in that weird, just old enough category to have seen both, but I'm not, ancient yet. So I didn't get to see, some of Jordan's very early stuff. I really got to only enjoy, the second half of Jordan's run, and then retroactively, of course, go back and enjoy as much of the first run as possible. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like when I was, 5 years old, I was enjoying some of that first major run. But we've got a video here that apparently is going to put a lot of this to rest. Jordan versus LeBron, the best GOAT comparison. Got the link to the original video in the description below, and I urge you to go and give it a view as well if you've been here. There's a good chance many of you have already seen this, though. And I have seen, I think, bits and pieces of this, because I think it's been used, in portions to make various cases for either. And look, I'm not going to lie, I'm a Jordan guy. I don't even think I've ever made an attempt to make that a secret. But if this video convinces me that maybe LeBron should be held in a little bit higher regard, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right in. This is a long video, so strap in for this bad boy. Let's go. When you're good at something, you'll tell everyone. When you're great at something, they'll, tell you? That's facts, though. Let's be real. That's facts. They're not lying. The showman, LeBron James. I'll get rid of this gum in my mouth so I'm not chewing in your ear. The great airness himself. Of course, both of these gentlemen famously rocking the 23. You love to see strength at the rim, regardless of era. Oh, that's filthy. Some good music for this. Some weight. Some serious stuff going on here.
Jordan versus LeBron. LeBron versus Jordan. It's a debate that has captured the public's attention for the last several years, especially after this moment in 2016, when LeBron James beat the Golden State Warriors to win the third championship of his career. In LeBron's own words,
"That one right there made me the greatest player of all time." That's what I felt. Reasons. I was like,
that was a spicy comment.
That made you the greatest player of all time.
But did it?
I'm not going to stop this video a whole bunch, but because it's already long enough, but that comment I do feel like gets a bit misconstrued. When you're trying to be the greatest of all time, which obviously LeBron James wants to be the greatest of all time, you kind of have to have that mentality. Now, normally you don't want to necessarily say that out loud, and I think that's probably what that opening quote was referencing pretty directly, is that you don't want to be the one to say it. You want your peers to tell you, right? But do I think LeBron James really thinks he's the greatest of all time? I don't know, maybe, but I think you have to tell yourself that at the very least. You have to be able to keep that, in your head and in your heart when you're out there playing your heart out on a nightly basis if you want to be that. So, how did you guys feel when he made that comment? Anyway, here we go.
Is everything since that moment simply icing on LeBron's cake? Or is LeBron destined to finish his career in Michael Jordan's shadow? We've all heard the arguments from LeBron supporters.
He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's more durable.
And from Jordan supporters.
Michael Jordan was merely 6-0 with 6 MVPs in the finals.
But the GOAT debate isn't as simple as the pundits make it seem. There are a number of factors relevant in determining the greatest basketball player of all time. In fact, I would say there are 5 things that really matter when determining the GOAT of any sport.
Here's some rings.
These criteria are, in no particular order, accomplishments, longevity, winning, statistics, and what we'll refer to in this video as the eye test.
Most people stick to accomplishments and statistics,
right? You don't
right?
need to be the best in any specific category, but you need to be pretty good across the board. So simply winning 7 championships, like Robert Horry did, isn't enough to get you into the conversation.
You're probably not, no.
When we're finished with this video, it'll be plainly obvious that one guy comes out on top. But before we get started, I want to clarify that this is not a comparison of legacies. It's about who was the better basketball player. If we were talking about legacies, Jordan's is nearly untouchable. Not only did he lead basketball to global popularity, he helped transform Nike into an empire, changed the way players played and how they dressed, and he even made it cool for guys to be bald. And while
Thanks, bro. I'm working on it personally,
iconic status,
so I appreciate that effort.
Player on the court.
Bless MJ.
So let's evaluate the criteria that matter, and we'll start with individual accomplishments.
All right, here we go.
Take a look.
What do we got?
Jordan had more regular season MVPs, twice as many finals MVPs, 9 more scoring titles,
and
several more selections to the NBA's all-defensive team, including once being named Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron has more All-Star appearances, but that's largely due to his having played more seasons. In fact, when taking into account retirements and major injuries, Jordan essentially played 13 seasons compared to 17 seasons for LeBron, making Jordan's significant lead in accomplishments all the more impressive.
It's a lot of consistency.
And that's to say nothing of MJ's brilliant college career, which saw him twice named All-American and once awarded College Player of the Year, at a time when the country's best players actually went to college.
That's
so
true.
Regardless of whether you're a LeBron fan or MJ fan, you have to give the accomplishments checkmark to Jordan. The second criteria in our GOAT analysis is longevity. And this one is also a no-brainer, but this time in favor of LeBron. Not only has LeBron played more seasons in the league, but he's had a longer peak than Jordan. Jordan's peak lasted about 10 years, whereas LeBron's peak
Jordan's era was so much more physically rough.
And he's been incredibly durable during that time, missing
and
significant
sports
time
science has gotten freaking crazy, man.
That said, the claim that LeBron has been much more durable than Michael has been a bit overblown. Consider that Jordan played in at least 80 regular season games 11 times in his career, including all 82 games an incredible 9 times. Compare that to LeBron, who played in at least 80 regular season games just twice, and in all 82 games just once.
They cycle players a lot now, saving them for things, right?
But durability
There's a term for it, I can't remember it right now.
The bottom line is that LeBron has sustained his level of excellence for a much longer period of time than Jordan, which puts the longevity checkmark squarely in LeBron's corner.
Well, that's 100% fair.
That brings us to the third GOAT criteria, winning. As we all know, Jordan won 6 championships. LeBron has won 3. Jordan is 6-0 in the NBA Finals.
That's
LeBron
huge.
is 3-6. Yes, LeBron has made the finals 9 times compared to only 6 times for Jordan, but let's not pretend that making the finals is the same thing, or even close to the same thing, as winning a title. Take a prime example from another sport, the Buffalo Bills. They're the only team in NFL history to appear in 4 consecutive Super Bowls. But is there a single player or fan of that team that wouldn't trade all 4 of those appearances for just 1 Super Bowl win?
Yeah.
Frankly, talk to any fan whose team lost the season's final game and ask them how they felt afterward. Almost universally, their feelings are of sadness, anger, and disappointment. And that's just the fans.
Imagine
For
the players.
Those feelings are only magnified.
Yeah.
Listen to Charles Barkley talk about losing in the NBA Finals.
Oh, Charles, bitter as
I
hell.
was just in shock when it was over because I had to. I was frustrated because I couldn't wheel my team past Michael and the Bulls.
Yeah, that's rough.
And it. First of all, I don't think I've ever gotten over it. Number one, but that was traumatic, and it's painful.
So we can all stop with this false equivalence between winning the championship and finishing runner-up. In the words of Herm Edwards,
you play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game.
He's not
now
wrong.
back to Jordan and LeBron. As mentioned, on basketball's biggest stage, the NBA Finals, Jordan was 6-0. LeBron was 3-6. And frankly, that doesn't even show how lopsided their records really are.
Man,
In
not
terms of
losing in the
individual
finals once.
games, Jordan was 24-11. LeBron is 18-31.
Yikes.
And that's because in 4 of his 6 finals losses, LeBron's team hasn't even been competitive. Twice he got swept, and 2 other times he lost 4-1. That includes being on the wrong side of the 2 most lopsided finals by margin of loss in NBA history. Of course, LeBron fans will tell you that the only reason for LeBron's poor finals record is that his competition was so tough. Ironically, some of these same fans
he did go up against the Warriors
early in his career to a Celtics team stacked with 5 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And they conveniently gloss over the fact that LeBron reached the finals so many times in part because the competition in his own conference was so weak.
Oh, that's a
During
dirty
the
play,
vast
though.
majority of his career, LeBron played in what many dubbed the Leastern Conference because the East was so much weaker than the West. On the other hand, during Jordan's playing days, the East was generally considered the stronger conference.
That's true,
Jordan
though.
had to battle through hard-fought rivalries against the Bad Boy Pistons, Patrick Ewing's Knicks, Shaq Penny-led Magic, and Reggie Miller's Pacers. That said, if you want to blame LeBron's failure in the finals on the level of his competition, I won't
he just
argue
got
with
done
you.
dirty there.
But let's also not blow it out of proportion. If you look at the average number of wins of their finals opponents, you'll see that LeBron's finals opponents averaged 60.8 wins per season, whereas Jordan's finals opponents averaged 61.2 wins per season.
Both the same, really.
So as it turns out, both players face stiff competition in the finals. But a big reason we don't hold the 93 Suns, the 96 Sonics, or the 98 Jazz in the same regard as some of LeBron's finals opponents is because, unlike LeBron's adversaries, Jordan's opponents never actually won the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
That would be because Jordan won
Which goes
it.
to my original point.
And the
that
Bulls,
the
of
difference
course.
between winning the title and finishing runner-up is huge. And the reason those teams never won the title? This guy. Look, I'm not trying to say that Jordan's opponents were as good as the Warriors teams that LeBron faced 4 times in the finals.
No.
The truth is that Jordan never played a juggernaut quite like that.
That team was
But
crazy.
there's a pretty good reason for that. Jordan's Bulls were the juggernaut. They were the team winning 70-plus games.
That's also
They
true.
were the team with the target on their back every year. And as the Warriors showed us, that's not an easy place to be. As great as the Warriors were, they were never able to string together 3 consecutive championships. Jordan's Bulls did it twice. So what's the greater achievement? Beating the juggernaut or being the juggernaut?
Double
Or to
three
be more
pieces.
specific, beating the juggernaut 1 time out of the 4 times you faced them? Or being the juggernaut year after year after year? And then doing it again, year after year after year. There's no doubt that LeBron's victory over the 73-win Warriors was the highlight of his career. But it's not the first time that an underdog has won the championship, and there actually have been much bigger underdogs who ended up winning the title. But how many times have we seen a player lead his team to 6 championships in 8 years? Prior to Jordan's Bulls, only Bill Russell's Celtics ever accomplished that feat in the NBA.
Won like
when they
11?
incredibly won 11 championships in 13 seasons.
Oh
However,
my God.
back then, there was an average of less than 10 teams in the league, and only a couple rounds of playoffs. So it was
That's still
considerably
crazy, though.
easier to win a
Like,
title.
I
And
get
no
the
player,
comparison,
not
but
even
still.
Bill Russell ever had a run of winning 25
Yeah,
of 26
that's crazy, though.
playoff series, as Michael Jordan did. And Michael's pattern of winning goes beyond the NBA. Let's not forget that Jordan has never won anything but gold in the Olympics, and he also earned an NCAA championship, in which he hit the first of 2 iconic championship-winning shots in his career. All that is to say, when it comes to winning, the checkmark clearly goes to Jordan.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
to the fourth GOAT criteria.
Yeah. He wins a lot.
This one is a bit more complicated. I mean, how do you statistically
Literally and
evaluate
figuratively?
two players who played in different eras under different rules at different positions? One way of doing it is to simply look at the 8 traditional statistics of basketball. Points, assists, rebounds, steals, blocks, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and turnovers. And we'll focus on per game stats.
Okay, so this is probably the only other time I pause this, hopefully. This is where it gets real muddy for people, because they'll look on at numbers on a sheet, especially with these base stats, and there is, like, I had a neighbor, just a small story, I had a neighbor that did sports stats as their job, and some of the more accurate sports stats that we have now, and unfortunately we can only apply them so far back into the past, are crazy and do such a better job than just looking at raw stats. And they come in handy when you're trying to compare players in different positions and whatnot, and to a degree different eras. But moving forward, it will be even better because we will have had the ability to truly reach back. I don't know if we've got enough to reach back for something like Jordan, at least to Jordan's early career, like some of these more advanced stats. Anyway.
Rather than cumulative stats, since cumulative stats such as total career points and total career assists really speak to longevity, which is already its own category of the GOAT analysis.
Yeah, LeBron's got that.
Stats, on the other hand, is more of an apples-to-apples comparison. So looking at the 8 traditional stats, we see that Jordan leads LeBron in 5 of them: points per game, steals per game, blocks per game, free throw percentage, and fewer turnovers. LeBron leads in the other 3: assists per game, rebounds per game, and field goal percentage. But that's a pretty simplistic way of
LeBron
looking
does
at
pass a
statistics.
lot more.
What if we instead turn to analytics? Probably the most well-known analytics stat is player efficiency rating, or PER for short. This metric was created by respected basketball analyst John Hollinger to give an overall rating to a player's performance based on traditional stats like the ones we just mentioned. Jordan has led the league in PER 7 times, LeBron 6 times. Jordan has finished top 3 in PER 10 times.
That's so close.
LeBron 9 times.
I mean, that's basically
In fact,
identical,
Jordan has
really.
the highest career PER in both the regular season and the playoffs. Another popular analytics stat is win shares. Jordan has led the league in win shares 8 times.
This is a bit more one-sided.
LeBron 5 times. Jordan has finished top 3 in win shares 11 times. LeBron 6 times. And when it comes to win shares per 48 minutes, Jordan has the highest career rating in both the regular season and the playoffs. What about box plus minus? Until recently, LeBron was actually ahead of Jordan in career box plus minus. But after the 2017 season gave Russell Westbrook the greatest single-season box plus minus in history by a wide margin, the architect of box plus minus realized that the stat was fundamentally flawed. So he made some
Poor
changes
Westbrook.
to improve its formula. As a result, Michael Jordan now has the highest career box plus minus in both the regular season and the playoffs. And lastly, what about value over replacement player, which on its face seems to favor LeBron James? Well, value over replacement player is a cumulative stat, and as previously noted, cumulative stats speak more to longevity than they do game-to-game dominance. That said, according
That's
to
still
value
fair
over
to James,
replacement
though.
player, Jordan owns 6 of the 9 greatest individual seasons ever
Okay.
played.
All right, well.
And on a per-game basis, MJ's career rating in value over replacement player is the highest of all time in both the regular season and the playoffs.
Well, fine then.
Are you noticing a theme here? Not only does Jordan beat LeBron in every ratable analytics stat, he consistently ranks as the best ever across the board. Before we move on from analytics, I want to
cold
mention
in here,
a
my nose is
lesser-known
running.
stat called game score, another brainchild of John Hollinger. Game score measures a player's performance in a single game, so it won't tell us who's had the better career, but it does provide insight into who's had the greatest games. Now, we only have game score stats since 1983, so you won't see any mentions of Wilt Chamberlain here. That said, of the 100 highest game scores ever recorded, incredibly 19 of them belong to Michael Jordan.
Stop.
In other words, nearly 1 out of every 5 of the best single-game performances over the last 4 decades has been by MJ.
God.
That includes the highest game score of all time for Jordan's 69.18 rebound masterpiece. Comparatively, LeBron
1
has
in
had only
5?
3 of the top 100 game scores.
Come on.
When discussing the GOAT, Nick Wright is fond of asking this question.
The aliens come down. You have one game to save humanity. Who's your first pick in the history of the world?
Well, Nick,
Michael
I think
Jordan?
we have our answer.
Michael Jordan?
Now that I've finished drowning you in numbers,
And probably Larry Bird.
Hardly anyone
personally.
watching this video knows how to calculate PER, win shares, box plus minus,
I
value of a
definitely do not.
replacement player, or game score.
Not even a little
And
bit.
why should you? This is basketball, not Goodwill Hunting. So let's go back to the traditional stats that we all know and understand. But this time, let's add context to them.
He's setting
What do I
you
mean
up
by
now.
Context? Well, some
right.
positions are simply better than others at racking up certain stats.
True.
Let's take rebounding as an example. In a vacuum, if we simply compare the number of rebounds per game of Brook Lopez and Jason Kidd, we might think that Lopez was the better rebounder. The truth is, relative to their positions, Lopez is statistically one of the worst rebounding centers in NBA history, whereas Kidd is statistically one of the best rebounding guards in NBA history. But even a poor rebounding center can grab more rebounds than a great rebounding guard
that's pain.
solely by virtue of their roles on the court.
But you got there,
it makes
big guy.
sense that to understand
Soft
the
hands.
context of a player's stats, we
Soft
should compare
hands.
them to the respective positions that they played. When comparing LeBron James to the other small forwards who have played at least 500 NBA games, this is where he ranks. Overall,
That free
that's
throw
pretty
percentage is
impressive.
hurting my soul.
Now let's see how Jordan compares to all
107th?
shooting guards who have played at least 500 NBA games. As good as LeBron is compared to other small forwards, Jordan is on another level when compared to other shooting guards. He's darn near the top of every major statistical category, and there isn't a single category where LeBron is better than MJ relative to his position, other than assists.
Man,
So to sum up
imagine
statistics.
imagine being in the top 3 for the majority of the more pedestrian, understandable statistics in a sport over time. Imagine. Across eras. That's insane.
Whether comparing traditional stats or analytics, and especially when judging these players in the context of the positions they played, Jordan has a noticeable edge over LeBron. As such, we have to give the checkmark to Jordan. And that takes us to the last category in our GOAT analysis, the eye test.
Oh, Jordan
And to
wins
be
this all
clear,
day.
By eye test, I don't mean which of these players is bigger, faster, or jumps higher. None of that is relevant unless we're having a track and field competition. And frankly, if physical measurables mattered, then George Murison would be in the GOAT conversation. No, what I mean by the eye test is, if you sat an average basketball fan in front of a TV to watch a player in action, what would he notice that the player is and is not great at? Thankfully, I happen to be an average basketball fan.
Developers,
and I've had the privilege of
developers,
watching both
Sorry.
LeBron and Jordan
Like 3
during
of you
their
probably
playing
got
days.
that.
So unlike a lot of my fellow YouTubers, I haven't merely relied on highlight videos. Here's what my eyes told me when I saw Michael Jordan play, particularly during his playing days with the Chicago Bulls. He was the best offensive player in the game. He was arguably the best defensive player in the game. He had the best mid-range game. He was the best finisher at the rim. He had the best post-up game, which is incredible considering most players who dominated the post were big men.
That windshield
He was widely
wiper
considered the most clutch player in the game.
that he employed,
He was regarded by
especially
opponents as the
second half of his
fiercest competitor
career.
on the court.
Huh.
He was regarded by teammates as the hardest worker in practice. And when all was said and done, amongst the other stars of his generation, he was the greatest winner. Now, when you're playing against the elite of the elite athletes of the world, to be the best at any one of those things is pretty remarkable. But to be the best at all of them? I tell you, it's impossible, but for the fact that we saw Michael Jordan do it. And when it comes to the GOAT debate, that's the biggest hurdle facing LeBron. He's basically being compared to a guy who was great at everything and practically had no weaknesses. Seriously, judging by the eye test, what's the worst thing we could say about Michael Jordan's game? Probably that he wasn't a very good three-point shooter. Jordan shot 33% from beyond the arc in an era when the average player also shot 33%. So when it came to three-point shooting,
Nobody
he
was
wasn't
shooting
good,
threes
he
back
wasn't
then.
bad, he was just
Nobody.
average. But remember that Michael played in an age when the three-point shot wasn't a big part of the game. During Jordan's years, teams averaged only 9.5 three-point attempts per game, and Michael himself attempted less than 2 threes per game. And if being an average three-point shooter is a weakness of Michael's game, well, then we also have to call it a weakness of LeBron's game. The difference is that LeBron plays in an era where the three-point shot is a huge part of the game.
Like
During the years
the
in which
majority
LeBron
of the
played,
game.
teams attempted on average over 21 threes per game. And
Holy
LeBron himself
crap.
averaged 4.3 three-point attempts per game, or 2.5 times as many as Jordan. Despite the increased emphasis on threes, LeBron's career shooting
Not my
percentage from
favorite
beyond the
shift
arc
in
is
the
only a
NBA,
hair
by the
better
way.
than Jordan at 34%. And it's actually slightly below his peers, who averaged 35% from three during his era. But to reiterate, being an average three-point shooter was by far the worst part of MJ's game. For LeBron, it's not even close. LeBron, in fact, has 4 major weaknesses as a basketball player, each of which is readily apparent to anyone who has actually watched him play.
That didn't
First,
feel good,
he's
though.
not a good free throw shooter. For his career, LeBron has shot
All
around
right.
73.5% from the free throw line.
Okay. Now, like, I'm so bad at stopping that I said I wouldn't, but listen. All right. When I played ball, and I only made it to right up to university ball, and I dropped it despite being told to go play ball in university because I wanted to focus on school, and I knew I wasn't smart enough or athletic enough to do both at the same time. I chose school. Which is probably good because it wasn't like I was going any further in university ball anyway. But look, all of my coaches, and I had some great coaches growing up, I would be running suicides on the court until my feet bled if I shot less than 80% from the free throw line. And that was in like high school ball and like city league. Can you imagine getting paid the amount of money that these guys get paid to play basketball? Especially when you're talking about people that are supposed to be in the greatest of all time category, and you're hitting under 75% from the line. No, stop. Every single person in the NBA, whether you're on the bench or on the floor in the starting five, should be shooting a minimum of 80%. 4 in every 5 should be going through that friggin' bucket. That's always been my stance. It drives me nuts when I see these guys out on the floor just like whiffing free throws and missing so many. And you sure as heck don't miss 2 in a row from the line. Guys, you're out here making tens of millions of dollars. You should be starting and ending your day shooting free throws, 100 of them, minimum. Because games, like of the basketball I watch these days, fouls are so common now because you can sneeze in the general direction of a fan, and it's like 16 fouls are called all at the same time. Games are won and lost at that line. And if you're not hitting 80%, I wouldn't even want to put you on the floor, personally. But that's just me. Anyway.
Which is pretty poor for a player who handles the ball as much as he does. In
True.
fact, many analysts point out that at the end of games, LeBron shies away from driving to the basket because he's afraid of being sent to the line. I don't know whether that's true, but what I do know is that the odds of LeBron hitting 2 consecutive free throws is statistically not much better than a coin flip.
Oh.
Jordan, on the other hand, shot a solid 83.5% from the
There
free
you
throw
go.
line during his career. And MJ never shied away from contact at the end of games. LeBron's
Definitely
second
not, no.
weakness is that he's an inconsistent defender. Sure,
Did I-
he's had some years
Hold
where he was
on, did I
elite
just see him
defensively,
stick his
which
foot
is
out?
evidenced by his numerous selections to the NBA's all-defensive team.
That's a
But
wild
he's
block,
also
though.
had several years where he's practically been a liability on the defensive
Where are
end.
you right
Compare
now?
that to MJ, who during his Bulls days was a consistently elite defender. In fact, Jordan is the only player to rank in the top 5 amongst all guards in both steals per game and blocks per game for his career. Additionally, Michael led his position in defensive win shares practically every year that he played for the Bulls, an incredible 10 times. LeBron, comparatively, has led his position in defensive win shares on just 4 occasions, and in 5 of his last 7 seasons, he didn't even crack the top 10 at his position in defensive win shares.
Where
Now,
are
some will
you
excuse
going?
LeBron's recent fall off on the defensive end as a byproduct of his resting
Nowhere,
in
apparently. This man said, I'm taking a vacation in the Bahamas. Everyone else could go up that floor, but I'm saving myself for marriage. Are you kidding me? Stop the madness.
defense so that he can have more energy on offense. And we can debate the merits of that strategy, but resting on defense is not something
Come on
Michael
now.
Jordan was ever accused of doing. Heck, even as a 40-year-old, he was busting his tail on the defensive end. But what about the notion that LeBron's been the more versatile defender? LeBron supporters will argue that he can guard positions 1 through 5 on the court, such as when he guarded Derrick Rose for stretches in the 2011 playoffs. But LeBron's guarding the opposing team's point guard or center isn't something that happens very often. In fact, during his career, LeBron has spent less than 5% of his total minutes guarding the opposing players 1 or 5. So the versatility argument is highly exaggerated. And look, when it comes to versatility, Hometown Buffet may have a more versatile menu than Spot. That doesn't make it a better restaurant. LeBron's third weakness is that he's not a very good shooter.
Oh.
And this is a pretty significant flaw for someone claiming to be the GOAT. I mean, shooting the ball is
Everyone
the
hits an air now and then,
skill
though.
in the game
Let's
of
be real.
basketball. It's the part of the game that everyone practices.
There's a
whether
brick
on the
now and then.
playground, at the YMCA, or in the NBA. Now, some people will contend that
I'm
LeBron's
guessing this
actually a
got
better
claimed and
shooter
had to
than
get blurred
Jordan
out
because he
on
has a better
YouTube's end.
career field goal percentage.
It's a
And
lovely
yes,
picture.
LeBron's
There we go.
career field goal percentage is 50.4% compared to Jordan's 49.7%.
Mm-hmm.
But recall what I said about placing stats into proper context. To help us understand context,
Jordan was like
when it
all
comes to
mid-range,
shooting,
though,
allow me to
right?
introduce DeAndre Jordan and Tyson Chandler. We all know that DeAndre and Tyson were great rebounders and defenders. But what if I told you that they were also 2 of the greatest shooters of all time? That would be certifiably
Incredible!
crazy. Yet if you look at all the shooting metrics, field goal
First,
percentage,
first, and second.
effective field goal
Let's go.
percentage,
Retire.
true shooting
Put that on a
percentage,
wall.
both of these guys rank near the top in NBA history. Of course,
Laminated.
there's an obvious reason for that. As we all know, both DeAndre Jordan and Tyson Chandler take a lot of their shot attempts on dunks, layups, and putbacks, which are extremely high percentage shots. Well, guess what? So does LeBron James. In fact, every single year of his career, the shot that LeBron James has taken the most has been within 0 to 3 feet from the basket. In other words, dunks, layups, and putbacks. More than 1 of every 3 of LeBron's shots has been within this point-blank range, which is aided by his playing in an era where it's been relatively easy to get to the rim, particularly when compared to the physical era in which Jordan played.
But that's not even
and just
close.
like every other player, LeBron is really effective from 0 to 3 feet, hitting over 73% of these shots. But how does LeBron fare from outside this range? According to basketballreference.com, LeBron's shooting percentage from outside 3 feet is 37.5%. It's even poorer in the playoffs where he shoots 35.9%.
Hold up. This man gets outside of 3 feet and he drops to sub 40? I didn't know it was that bad. And it's worse in the play.
And it gets even worse in close and late situations. In the last 2 minutes of games where the score is within 5 points, LeBron hits only 31.7% of his jumpers. Look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that these numbers aren't very good, which is probably why in the 2013 finals, the Spurs' defensive strategy against the Heat was to basically dare LeBron James to shoot. And keep in mind, this was against LeBron in his prime. Can you imagine an opposing coach using a similar strategy against MJ?
No.
Now, LeBron actually credits the Spurs for forcing him to work on his jump shot. But it's not as if his results have gotten much better since then. Here's LeBron's shooting percentage from outside 3 feet over the last 6 years.
If anything, he's consistent.
Well, I'll give him this. He is consistent.
Yeah.
For comparison, consider that in the last year of Michael Jordan's career, as an aging player on the Washington Wizards,
People sleep
Jordan
on
shot close
Jordan's
to
comeback for the
42%
Wizards,
from
by the way.
outside 3 feet.
42.
While that's certainly not great, it means that even as a 40-year-old
40.
shell of his former self, Jordan was still a better shooter, a far better shooter
On
than
the
LeBron
Wizards.
James. Unfortunately, Basketball Reference doesn't have advanced shooting metrics from Michael's Bulls days, when he was a significantly more efficient scorer. But few would argue that Michael was anything but a lethal jump shooter when he was wearing red and black. When it comes to shooting, all of us can recall practicing shots on the blacktop, counting down 3, 2, 1, before launching a shot at the rim. Well, if you were pretending to be LeBron James, you'd brick almost
Lots of people
2/3
pretend
the
to be
time.
Kobe with that, though.
Actually, that's not entirely true. If you were playing against a countdown, it would
Jordan
be much,
first, then Kobe,
much
right?
worse. And that gets me to the last major weakness of LeBron's game, his performance, or more accurately, lack of performance, in the clutch. Remember when people were praising LeBron for making a couple of buzzer beaters in the playoffs 2 years ago?
That
They
one's
used
cold,
these
though. Off the
stats to
glass
claim
is
that LeBron
silly.
was better in the clutch than Jordan. But look at these numbers carefully. What stands out to you? How about this? People were using a sample size of less than 1 shot per season to make the case that LeBron was more clutch than Jordan. That would be the equivalent of polling just 100 people in the country to try to predict the winner of the next presidential election. So let's use more telling stats, shall we? Here's a situation that's often used to determine a player's clutchness. 5 seconds to go in the fourth quarter or overtime, and your team needs a bucket to either win or tie the game. It answers the age-old question, who do you want taking the last shot with the game on the line?
Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. Let's go.
In the regular season and playoffs combined, LeBron
Flip a
has
coin.
taken 94 such shots. That's a pretty good sample size. And how many of those 94 shots has LeBron made? 19, for a shooting percentage of 20%. Let me repeat that. 20%.
1 in 5.
Guys, that's not bad in the clutch. That's atrocious. Michael Jordan in the same situation shot roughly 50%.
Oh my lord.
Yes, that's right. Jordan's performance under pressure was the same as it was throughout the rest of the game. And that, my friends,
That's a killer.
is the definition of clutch.
That's a killer.
So there you go. When it comes to the eye
50%.
test, our eyes tell us that one player, Michael Jordan, is great at everything and has practically no weaknesses. And the other player, LeBron James, while also having a ton of strengths, has several obvious flaws to his game. And when all is said and done, after analyzing the 5 key factors of being the GOAT, Jordan gets 4 check marks to LeBron's 1, making this GOAT debate, well, not much of a debate at all. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that LeBron James is a bad player. He's a phenomenal player. Personally, I have him on basketball's Mount Rushmore, along with Jordan, Kareem, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell.
That's a
He's
solid
just not
Rushmore.
Michael Jordan. And just to underscore how good MJ was, let's ignore LeBron and Jordan for a minute and focus on the other 3 players highlighted here, Kareem, Wilt, and Bill Russell. Most would agree that these are the 3 greatest centers in NBA history, and each of them has a strong case to justify his standing among basketball royalty. Wilt is an all-time great because he was an offensive force of nature, and he holds a ton of NBA records.
Wilt Chamberlain was
Russell
a
is in the conversation
crazy
because he was a
athlete.
dominant defender and a perennial champion. Kareem also led his team to numerous titles, and in terms of individual awards and
Skyhook.
accolades, was the most decorated of the 3. Not to mention, he had the NBA's most unguardable shot. Now imagine a center that had all the best qualities from these 3 titans. A player like that would be the basketball equivalent of Thanos. Now add to that player the highest level of intangible attributes, such as a tireless work ethic, unmatched killer instinct, and an ability to deliver in the clutch. And now you'd essentially be looking at Thanos with all of the Infinity Stones, and no one would question whether this player was the greatest of all time.
You know where he's going.
But the truth is, we don't have to imagine such a player.
He's pointing.
That player already existed. He just happened to be a shooting guard, not a center. When you think about it, Michael Jordan is the real-life version of an overpowered video game character. He had all the qualities we look for in a superstar athlete, and he had
That's
it
a
in
good
spades.
comparison.
He's basically Babe Ruth, if Babe Ruth played defense like Willie Mays. And that's why, even in comparison to the other all-time greats, he is truly in a class of his own. Simply put, he's the GOAT.
Okay. I mean, I already had him as my GOAT, but I wasn't so deep in this debate that I was looking at all that. I would love to see if somebody were in, because I don't know, like, the depths of some of the stats and stuff that he's pulling or the analysis. If some of them are maybe considered to be too biased for this debate and try to make the case for LeBron. I don't know if that exists, but I mean, this is a pretty strong case. I'm just happy I got to grow up watching both of them play. But Jordan, man, look at the hang time on this. Everyone knows that shot. And this one. Hold that. Hold that. It's fire. It's fire. It's Jordan all day.
Thanks for watching. This was my first video.
That was this man's first video? Stop it. Danger P. That's his YouTube channel. Of course, I'll have the link to the original video as well in the description. I think this video is from like last year or something like that too. This man came out swinging first video. Are you kidding me? Easy there, Danger P. Making me look bad. Here I am reacting to your video. All right? Michael Jordan. Honestly, yeah, the greatest basketball player of all time. And not just that, but like in my opinion, when you're looking at sports in which an individual player can make such an enormous impact, and basketball is one of those sports where a single player can kind of do a little bit of everything on their own. Whereas, you know, in football, for example, you don't get that opportunity and whatnot. You know, Jordan is pantheon amongst all sports for that reason. In my opinion, anyway. Great stuff. Maybe I'll do a little bit more looking into basketball and reacting to this kind of thing. Maybe watch some highlight reels and whatnot. Let me know if you guys would like to see that. I'd love to catch some highlight reels of the guys that I grew up watching. Or you know, whether I got to see it live or whether I went back and watched you know, some of their games later. When I was growing up playing basketball, my coaches would give us some stuff to watch, and it was almost always old stuff. So like I got to watch some of the first half of, like I said, Jordan's career that I never got to see because I wasn't old enough yet at the time, or Larry Bird, who retired so early. I think it was Larry Bird, retired in '93. That guy was hit by 4 trucks, 3 airplanes, and a bus. So that guy retired early, unfortunately. But yeah, I got to go back and watch some, and man, basketball is just great. I do hope that we get back to a basketball that's closer to the 80s and 90s. I'm not a fan of where basketball is right now. It's too easy to foul. Paint play is starting to make like a sort of a comeback, because Giannis is a player that exists, but man, it was so much more dynamic and less divey and all that stuff too. So I would love to watch basketball get back to this, but all the same, I'm going to ramble too much if I keep going. This is already a 42-minute video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button. All of my socials are in the description below. Let me know how you feel about the debate. If you're into this kind of stuff between Jordan and LeBron, maybe you have your own GOAT that's neither of these. That's entirely possible. Let me know who some of your favorite basketball players are. And if you have highlight reels or anything from your favorite players or other players that you might want me to check out, you can also leave those as suggestions in the comments, and I'll maybe try and make some time to take a peek. Thank you once again for stopping by, guys. It's been an absolute blast. Love me some basketball. Until I see you on the next one, stay safe out there, and all that fun stuff. I'll see you soon. Peace.